Hello, my name is Austin Childress. I am the Director of Education for Carabello Coffee here in Newport, Kentucky. This video is brought to you by Roasty Coffee. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 essentials of brewing coffee at home. So the things that we're going to look at are cleanliness of your equipment, what you're using. The second thing will be water. What's your quality of water like? Third thing will be ratio. Do you know how much you're using? Is what you're doing repeatable? Then we'll look at grind size, and how that grind affects time will be the last thing that we're gonna look at. So here we go. All right, cleanliness. Let me very quickly dispel a myth. There's a myth going around that you should allow that kind of residual oily substance that builds up in your brewing device to stay there. That is not true. It does not impart more flavor. It does not make your coffee better. Since coffee is an oily substance, as you allow those oils to sit there without being cleaned, they will eventually go rancid, and they will impart more bitterness to your cup. And if there's something that we want in coffee, it is not more bitterness. So first step is just to have squeaky clean coffee equipment, and that will automatically make your home brewing better. The second thing we're going to talk about is water. This is a tricky subject in coffee because water is different all over the world, even city to city. But the idea that if a coffee cup, when you brew it, is actually 98% water, we better have good quality water. So maybe if you feel like you have everything else in place at home, why don't you go ahead and try to switch up your water? If you've just been using tap water, try using filtered water. If you've been using filtered water, try getting bottled water of some different sort. Just try out, see what you're able to do there, and maybe just switching up your water will help your home brewing. The next thing is ratio. When I say the word ratio, that means how much coffee you're using per the water that you're using. One of the simplest ways to have great coffee at home is just to find repeatability. I know even for myself, for a long time, I left it up to chance. I would scoop out this much coffee and just guess how much water I was putting in and hope that would make a good product. But when I was able to actually measure out the amount of coffee and water that I was using each time, I was then able to make adjustments to make sure I was making a good cup every single time at home. So I would recommend starting at like a 15-to-1 ratio, meaning for every 15 grams of water, you're gonna do 1 gram of coffee. Or if you wanted to convert that to, say, tablespoons, for every 2 tablespoons of coffee, you're gonna do 6 ounces of water, 6 to 8 ounces of water. You can kind of play with that as you like. If you find that you brew this and you want kind of a bolder cup of coffee, maybe make the ratio smaller. Try a 14-to-1 ratio or something like that. If you find that you want it a little bit lighter, go ahead and try a 16-to-1 ratio. If you just want something that's a little more mild, a little more easy drinking. Next thing that we're going to talk about is your grind. A grinder can be one of the biggest inhibitors in making good coffee. So if you have a grinder that maybe doesn't give you the same particle size, maybe you have some pieces that are really big and some pieces that are like powder, odds are you will never get a good cup of coffee from a grinder that's producing that. So I would recommend finding a good either conical or flat burr grinder for home use. They're great, and that'll make sure that you have repeatable, achievable, good coffee every single time you're brewing at home. And the other thing that we're gonna do with a grind is that particle size. We need to be able to monitor it. So you'll kind of play with it. So say you brew your coffee and you kind of get a bitter drying sensation. Odds are your grind is actually too fine. So you should make it a little bit coarser that next time that you brew so that the water runs through faster. Or say you actually don't like the cup because it feels too light or it's almost sour. That probably means that your grind is too coarse, so just go ahead and make the grind a little bit finer next time, and that should help it take a little bit longer and draw a little bit more flavor out of it and a little more balance. Then the last thing that we're going to talk about is time. So time is pretty much directly influenced by your grind size. So what this means is in most brew methods, for a regular coffee pot or a pour over method, you're gonna aim for somewhere between 3, 4, even 4.5 minutes. So say your brew took 2 minutes, odds are you're not gonna have a great cup of coffee, and you should probably make your grind a little bit finer. If your grind takes way too long and it's 6 minutes and it's still dripping and you taste it and it tastes kind of bitter, that's when you go back to your grind again, make it a little bit coarser. So I hope that was helpful. If you can just pay attention to these 5 easy things, right? You're gonna make sure your equipment is clean, that you're using good water, that you know your ratio, that you have a good grinder and appropriate grind size, and then you're just gonna watch the time. If you do those things, you'll be on your way to making better coffee at home. Hope this was helpful.